Welcome into Saw is War. My name is Dustin, and it is a great day to talk about wrestling because this last week has been absolutely crazy. WWE has been laying the groundwork for this new era, the Raw after Mania, the SmackDown after Mania, the NXT after Stand and Deliver, all kind of gave us hints and ideas of where everything is going to go this next year. And it feels still like almost all of that was overshadowed by what happened on AEW on Wednesday and all of the discourse surrounding that. Before I get into that, I'm just going to say I appreciate anyone watching. You can always watch on YouTube or you can listen basically anywhere you get your podcasts at this point. I think there are a couple places that I'm still waiting on the upload and like approval process to be finished, so it's not on Spotify yet. Everywhere else though, I think we should be good. If you watch, listen, enjoy anything like that, please feel free to send an email, leave a comment anywhere. I will put an email address in the description of this episode on YouTube and in the podcast platform as well. Please, any thoughts, anything you liked in the week, didn't like in the week, anything that you think should be, for lack of a better word, acknowledged, mentioned, anything like that at all, please drop a line. I would love to hear from anyone and everyone that is checking any of the stuff that I post out. That is still beyond crazy to me. So, diving into everything, we will start on the WWE side. It's funny, I had all this stuff I wanted to talk about as like the big main topic for WWE and the new era and what this is all going to look like, I think. But this AEW stuff really kind of blows it out of the water. Specifically, all of the conflicting reports and all of the discourse that it's led to. So, I'm going to go through the WWE stuff really quick and then get to the AEW stuff as like the main point for today. So, there we go. Let's hit WWE. So, the Raw after WrestleMania is kind of at the point now where it's a little too overhyped to be like the crazy awesome night that WWE kind of wants you to remember it as. Like, as soon as they started doing like the hashtags Raw after Mania and advertising like, oh, here comes the special Raw after Mania, feels like it lost a lot of the luster that it had. And it's funny because that's not even something that happened because WWE started advertising it that way. It's something that happened because that meant that the fans had expectations for huge returns, huge debuts, huge call-ups from NXT. It just got out of control with all of the speculation, and there was never going to be a way to avoid disappointment with that type of, rumors and excitement and theories. It just wasn't going to work. So it's kind of hit a point in the last couple of years where they've tempered everything out, and there are some good surprises. And, more importantly than that, there was a lot of groundwork being laid for what is to come. And this Raw after Mania really did not spare in that sense. We got the opening segment took about 55 minutes. And it was Triple H and Cody Rhodes, the new WWE undisputed world champion, I think it is now. Universal, it looks like they're just phasing that out. The belt looks great on Cody. It's funny because, I picture the giant AEW title that he never held, and to see him with the giant WWE title, it almost looked weird for a second. Like, it looked so big on him. I don't know. I don't know if that's just a me thing or the suits or the way he was carrying it or what, but it just looked massive slung over his shoulder. But that's besides the point. That's just an aesthetic thing. That does not matter. What matters is we get this promo. We get Triple H and Cody. We get the video special that Triple H says that people in the back have prepared for him. And it was all very nice. It was a really nice continuation of the moment from the end of WrestleMania where he was celebrating with everyone. And then The Rock comes out and everyone's kind of surprised because it kind of felt like The Rock's big thing was like he was gone after Mania because he had to basically go straight to shooting a movie. So instead, he shows up on Raw and they have this weird 15-minute whisper back and forth type promo. Like, it was really like a weird subdued type of promo. and the fans were relentless in the terrible things they were chanting at The Rock that needed to be censored, which also in turn made it hard to follow the rhythm of the promo that was happening between the two of them. And it ended with The Rock basically like saying this weird exchange, like, let me hold that belt. Cody's like, well, fine, let me hold your belt that Muhammad Ali's family gave you. They do this weird, awkward exchange and hold the belts and look at each other for a second and go, okay, here you go. And then The Rock hands Cody Rhodes something. We don't see what it is. Speculation has gone insane online about what that is. I have seen some crazy theories surrounding that. I have no idea what it is. I have no idea really what I want it to be that he handed him. All I know is that if The Rock is really not available till, June or July because he's filming a movie, I don't want them to wait until June or July to tell me what that was. It's going to drive me crazy if they reference it every single week, sometimes twice a week, and just not tell you. I would not like that at all, and that's probably a me thing, but that would drive me insane. That's the type of stuff that would drive me insane in real life, too. If like, my wife or someone tried to do that to me, I would lose my mind. It would drive me crazy. So we will see what happens with that. Across the rest of the show, Liv Morgan threw a chair at Rhea Ripley in what was one of the funniest backstage segments. The camera work continues to be incredible in this post-Kevin Dunn era. I cannot believe all of the cool shots and experimental setups and things that they're trying. I also really liked the condensed set, so that it seems like they're moving towards running a more minimal entranceway and ramp and setup to make sure that they can really maximize the amount of people coming into the arena. And I think it makes for a better look just aesthetically overall. Like, I thought the shot of Cody Rhodes coming out with, people behind him, like, almost over his back, like, it just looked like such a big packed house compared to seeing them on a stage with the giant Titantrons and the huge scaffoldings and everything. So I don't know if this will be like a regular thing for every show, but I did appreciate it, and I did like that setup. We also got a little bit more in the way of Drew McIntyre and his plight after losing the title on WrestleMania Sunday. After having it for like 5 minutes, Damian Priest cashes in, and voila, he is now the world champion. And there was a fatal 4-way match to determine who was going to be his first challenger. And CM Punk, the pesky CM Punk, pops up again and costs McIntyre the match, which Jey Uso will be challenging Drew McIntyre now. And that's a really good choice for a first opponent, because he's someone that the crowd can easily get behind. If they want to push Priest as, this badass heel, having him, squash and lay out Jey Uso is going to go a long way towards that really quickly, just because of his status with the WWE fans and just how popular he is. So I do think that's a really good choice. I was a little disappointed there wasn't more direction as far as like Cody was concerned and what was happening with that, but the fact that they did all this first on Monday made me think, like, okay, so Priest and Judgment Day and all them are probably going to hang out on Mondays, and Cody will probably slide over to Fridays like Roman Reigns was, with the occasional appearances elsewhere. And they did announce as well that the draft will be back, which, that's fine. I kind of don't really care either way about it. Like, I can take it or leave it. I don't know if there's anyone on the rosters where it's like, if they get moved to a show, I'm not going to watch that show. I don't really think that's the case. I will say, too, there were a couple of nice surprises that made sense in the scheme of things, but were a little odd because they weren't the traditional NXT call-ups where, like, okay, now this person's on the roster. And it was Ilya Dragunov took on Shinsuke Nakamura in a very nice surprise match that was basically just a showcase for Ilya. And then Roxanne Perez also came and had her first match on Raw, and it's kind of cool. It's cool to have both of the title holders for NXT on Raw. It gives, a little bit more credibility. It gives a little more, I guess, for lack of a better word, equality. Like, it puts the NXT on the same pedestal, and that's kind of something that you can see has been a focus as they've been sending wrestlers back and forth from, Raw to NXT to SmackDown to, Dominic Mysterio held the North American title for 3 months. So it's clear that they've been putting that effort in, and to have the champions featured in prominent matches on the show the night after WrestleMania, when they're probably getting like one of their biggest ratings of the year, was, I think, a smart decision to intrigue for the draft, but to also make sure people are staying and going to check out NXT. The NXT on Tuesday, I think, was good. I think they've laid a lot of groundwork for the next couple weeks leading into the draft, because who knows who's going to get called up, who's going where. They've laid out 2 gigantic matches for Trick Williams. They did that on Tuesday, where he will take on Carmelo Hayes in a steel cage this coming week, and then in 2 weeks he will have one more chance at the NXT title versus Ilya Dragunov, and if he loses, he leaves NXT. And that's usually a pretty built-in stipulation for, okay, he's going to lose and he's going to get called up, but Dragunov was just on Monday Night Raw beating Shinsuke Nakamura clean, and everyone was kind of treating it like an introduction to the wider WWE universe who may not watch NXT, where they're explaining everything you need to know about him, and that's usually like a sign of a call-up. So I'm really curious to see what the next couple weeks of NXT programming are going to look like, because I think Ilya dropping the title and going up to the main roster makes a lot of sense. I think Trick Williams Trick Williams losing and going up to the main roster makes a lot of sense as well. I don't think there's much left for him to do down in NXT if he doesn't have the title, but if he does, then who's the first person lining up to take him on? Is it Carmelo Hayes? Like, if he beats him in the cage match next week, what is the point? So I'd be curious to see what it would look like if they decided to put it on Trick Williams and give him that belt because he is that popular, or if they just think, he's so ready now, he doesn't need it. Like, he doesn't need the credibility of the title or a reign or anything like that. You can just, rocket him right to the main roster and we're off and running. So I'll be really curious to see what's going on with that. I do also want to give a shout out to Javon Evans, who had his first match on NXT. Dude is 19 years old, and he looked like an absolute star. It wasn't the longest match versus Scripps. It was kind of one-sided, but he absolutely showed out. Incredible athleticism and ability. I'm very excited to see what he does, and more importantly, I really hope Wes Lee can heal up and come back soon, because those two guys can probably put on a show. So hopefully, if you have the chance to check that match out, please do. It's not super long, but it is definitely worth it. And then WrestleMania week came to an end with SmackDown, the SmackDown After Mania, which I think is funny that they use that phrase the entire week. But the SmackDown After Mania happens, and a lot of big developments, and, kind of like I said before, laying the groundwork for what's to come. And one of the biggest stories, I'm sure, coming out of WrestleMania was what is going to happen with the Bloodline now that they don't have the title. How are they going to keep that story fresh? What's going to happen? What happens with Roman? What happens with any of these guys? The Rock is gone. What are we going to do? And we got that answer real quick into SmackDown. I think it was like the second segment. Paul Heyman, Jimmy Uso, and Solo Sikoa come out and cut this promo about how, Roman Reigns accepts that they lost and that it was their fault that they lost and it wasn't the interferences or anything like that, and they got to own it. Roman was not there, of course. This was all just being relayed. And then Solo Sikoa gets in Jimmy Uso's face and says, like, there needs to be change. This is embarrassing. We lost, and with loss comes change. I love you. It's okay. And then out of the crowd, out of nowhere, Tama Tonga makes his WWE debut. And together, him and Solo just beat down Jimmy Uso for like an uncomfortable amount of time for selling like how bad they were beating him. Like, I think Solo must have hit him with like 8 Samoan spikes and then like hip attacked him in the corner with a chair around his neck. And Paul Heyman, the entire segment was incredible. His performance is going to be, this could be like another magnum opus in a career that is filled with them, as far as Paul Heyman is concerned. Solo takes Heyman's Roman Reigns phone that he talks to Roman Reigns with, smashes it in the ring. Tama Tonga's calling Solo the tribal chief, and we are off with Bloodline 2.0 and setting in motion probably a Roman and Usos OG bloodline taking on Tonga, Solo, and who knows, maybe The Rock, maybe Jacob Fatu. Um, Either way, OG Bloodline 2.0. Definitely not a direction that I saw coming, but absolutely great. I think this was the perfect way to keep them interesting and to keep everything fresh without the title. And it also goes to show what that reign and what this story has done for all of these guys, because all of these guys are, that main event level talent now. So they don't need a title to tell a story because they have the credibility of always delivering in that spot. So I think that's really important to note too. Across SmackDown, Naomi and Tiffany Stratton had a fight. Naomi won and will take on Bayley as the first challenger for her title next week. And that was kind of about it. One other thing from just the week after all the allegations came out, after Ronda Rousey accused Drew Gulak of pulling on her sweatpants strings, he was just gone. He was just not mentioned at all. They pulled him from, I think it was 7 hours of WrestleMania media and obligations, and then he was not at NXT. The new Catch crew was there, and they came out and had a match, and he was not in the Titantron, not mentioned. So I have no idea what's going on with that, but it seems like they're taking that at least, credibly serious to determine whatever's going to happen there. Who knows? Not that that's a pleasant thing to bring up in the middle of talking about the future and these storylines and everything, but it's important to note because, these types of things, unfortunately, are probably going to come out for a while, just given the history of the people that used to be in charge of WWE and that old guard and all of that behavior. So we will see what happens. Definitely have to keep an eye on everything, and just hope that everything kind of just gets resolved and worked out as quickly and as neatly as possible, because I think there's been enough messy, poorly handled drama from WWE for probably a lifetime at this point. Now, I think that's everything in WWE. Like I said, if I missed anything, please leave a comment or send an email in to the address I'll put in. But AEW this week, it's so funny because everything you say feels like it's like the most like gigantic like life or death type thing, and people are really divided on this. So AEW last week, before, or it might have been before, it might have been right after or during WrestleMania weekend, they put out an announcement that the Young Bucks would be showing footage from All In this coming Wednesday on Dynamite. And the speculation was that it was going to be the closed circuit TV footage of CM Punk and Jack Perry having their altercation that happened moments before CM Punk went out and had what would be his last match in AEW with Samoa Joe. And this happened because last week, before WrestleMania, CM Punk gave a 2-hour Ariel Helwani interview where he talked about a lot of things, and that specific incident came up. And he for lack of a better word, he really went in on the lack of structure and the lack of authority in the company, and said, Tony Khan's a really nice guy, he's a good guy, but he's not a boss. He does not have it like that to be an authority figure. And so it's kind of a, the inmates run the asylum type of thing. And apparently that did not sit well with Tony. He stayed away from Twitter this time, thankfully, but instead got the idea. And all of the reports said that the idea behind showing this was to embarrass CM Punk, was to show that he was lying and to ruin his credibility and to embarrass him one more time, with him out the door already and back in WWE. So on the other side of things, people were like, there's no way they're going to do that. It's got to be, a bait and switch. They're going to try to get the ratings in, try to get that boost, and then it'll just be, a joke because the Young Bucks are taking on FTR in a couple weeks at Dynasty, and CM Punk's not there, and Jack Perry is wrestling in New Japan right now. He's not even in AEW either. So what is the point of doing it? Well, then Wednesday comes, and sure enough, they just air the footage. They just air the CCTV footage. And, I will let others be the judge for themselves. I posted the video. I'm shocked it's still up on YouTube right now. And it is just a side-by-side of what Punk said with what happens in the video. And to me, it looks pretty close to what he said. It looks, you can't hear anything, which is a gigantic disappointment. It makes it worse because, we'll never truly know if that's the case. If that's the best footage that exists, we'll never truly know what happened. But to me, it's pretty close. It looks pretty similar to what he's describing. So I'll leave it at that. But obviously, people were completely divided in how they felt about that. Some people thought, no, that's obviously too far. Like, CM Punk is in the wrong. Others were like, okay, this proves that he's right and AEW is kind of a joke. There was footage coming out from inside the arena where they were showing it, and fans were chanting CM Punk in the arena while they were watching the footage, and then cheered when he got Jack Perry in a headlock and shoved him and all that. And it just not a good look. And then later in the show after that, the Young Bucks came out for a sneak attack, and again, CM Punk chants almost as soon as they hit the ring, which, again, not what you want because he's not in the company. And all of this has really gotten me wondering because the discourse around it, like I said, some people are like, okay, this proves that he was in the wrong and he's a jerk. Others are like, okay, this proves that he's telling the truth, and this probably lends credibility to the other stuff he has said about AEW and their lack of foundation and leadership. And I don't think it went the way that everyone involved thought it was going to go, because the next day, immediately reports started coming out that were conflicting, that were like, oh, the Young Bucks didn't want to do it. Tony Khan talked him into it because he really wanted to do it. No, wait, actually, they did want to do it too. Everyone signed off. And probably the worst part of all of this is AEW hyped this up for days. It was on all of their posts hyping this episode of Dynamite. It was like this really big segment. And within an hour after Dynamite ended, they were copyright striking anyone that posted anything to do with that footage. I tried to put the same video that I put on YouTube on TikTok, and TikTok was basically like, hey, if you keep trying to post this, we will just delete your account. That's it. It's not happening. Which is odd. I'm surprised. Like I said, it's still on YouTube going strong. I don't know why it's been spared so far. If you're seeing this and it's gone, I'm sorry, but I don't know how much time there's actually going to be with it. And they just went crazy and started, even Ariel Helwani, who did the interview with Punk, his footage of it where he did something similar, where he just showed, here's the clip of what Punk said. Now here's the footage they aired. What do you think? They copyright struck him, and it was his show. So just a mess. And now the discussion turns to, was it worth it? Was it worth it to have that moment and to get that boost or that controversy, generate that interest? And the ratings came out, and I'm not a television ratings expert at all, but the overall, I believe, was 819,000 people, which is more than in recent weeks and months, but is still, not ideal. I think it came in third to 2 NBA games in ratings in terms of the key demographics they want. Did good in that as well. I guess it was an improvement there too, but it wasn't oh man, 1.5 million people had to watch Dynamite because they wanted to see this Punk footage, but it was still the biggest, highest viewed segment of the episode. So not only did it not get the numbers that they want, but it did be the highest rated thing on the show, which is a segment featuring slander towards a wrestler who is not in the company. And, to me, that sends the wrong message to everyone else in the company. this is, this is either how focused we are on embarrassing him, or this is how mad we are at what he said, that we're going to take the time out to show all this footage that ostensibly does nothing for us and could make us look worse. And it just, to me, it just feels like such a weird, like, childish type of thing to do. And it really took away from otherwise what was a good episode. Like, I thought there was some really good matches. Like, Adam Copeland and Penta had a match to open the show that was like absolute banger. Like, they went out there and just put on a great match. And Adam Copeland wrestling like a more lucha style at 50 plus years old, when he has been doing kind of the same type of thing, WWE style for his whole career up until now, was really cool to see. And Penta is such a smooth, good worker. Like, it was so cool to see them have that time in that showcase, and it's gonna get lost. And Mariah May had a really good match with Anna Jay, and that's gonna get lost. And Samoa Joe had a match with Dustin Rhodes, which is kind of funny. The week after WrestleMania, AEW books a Rhodes and a Samoan man named Joe to have a match where the Rhodes gets absolutely obliterated by a corner ring post and is bleeding all over the place for the majority of the match. Just really weird decisions. And one thing that's kind of funny to me is all of the shots that everywhere else has been taking. Like, people, like I said, it's pretty polarizing. You're on one side or you're on the other. And Forbes, in their show breakdown and review, had CM Punk defeats Jack Perry listed as a match. And of course, the ratings site that everyone always mentions for match ratings, Cage Match, I think it is. This was the lowest rated Dynamite episode ever on Cage Match in terms of like overall score. And there was all the references that Punk made about the people in AEW caring more about that and like star ratings than caring about making money and putting on good shows. And, to pile on to that, Dave Meltzer tweets out that he thinks it was a mistake to air that footage. And it just, all around, it just does not. And then you have Tony Khan tweeting the next day like, man, TBS just said our ratings were up 29% and everything's looking good. And it's just like, dude, it's not the time. It's such an odd thing to just kind of try to brush off now. Like, you haven't been having, footage copyright stricken to hell as soon as it's getting posted. And I don't know. It just feels like such a like 2 steps backwards for 1 step forward type of thing. Like, AEW has been in such a good place recently. And then it feels like these last 2 weeks, they have just been rattled by these comments by CM Punk and then by Triple H, who made a comment on, I think it was Pat McAfee on ESPN, where he took kind of a shot at, wrestlers that didn't sign with WWE because they didn't want the grind of working a WWE schedule and wanted to take the easy way out. And Will Ospreay took that as a shot at himself and came out and made a reference to the only grind, he knows is grinding on the boss's daughter to get where he is. And it was just odd. It was just an odd, like, screeching halt to what has been a truly, like, peak period for AEW. They've been in such a good groove, and to be so rattled to be taking shots multiple times. They had the promo 2 days after the Punk interview last week where Copeland came out and opened the show and talked for like 15 minutes about, I came to AEW because this is where we wrestle and this is where we settle things with wrestling, and it's so good to have, and it's great, and we're so happy to be here. And like, I thought that was it. And like, they addressed it that way, and it was a little odd to open the show like that, but you know what, whatever. If you had to say something, you said your piece, that's good. And then now they open up a can of worms and go basically the exact opposite direction of that opening speech. And they show this footage, and then they have FTR come out and cut a promo about, we're moving on from this, like, we don't care anymore, this is so old. And it's just odd. It's odd that they tried to build it into the match now happening where, the Young Bucks say, maybe FTR put them up to it to rattle us before our match, and that's why we lost at All In. And, these tenuous things to make it work and to be like, see, we had a reason for doing it. We weren't just being petty. We weren't just hanging Jungle Boy out to dry here by showing footage of him getting choked and, essentially just like dealt with. And it's, I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about why do it, and the only thing I can come up with and come to is that this has to be designed to help Jack Perry and this new scapegoat character that he's been running, because after this aired, the next day, all of his merch sold out on New Japan. All of the scapegoat shirts and all of that sold out on New Japan. And then he came out for Friday for New Japan Riot, to a thunderous chorus of boos. It was in Chicago, and he came out in a jacket that said "Cry Me a River" and draped with the Chicago flag. So he's really leaning into it. My only thought is they're showing this and planting all these seeds so that they can have him return to AEW and cost FTR the match against them at Dynasty and join the Elite. And then we have a new Elite of Okada, the Young Bucks, and Jack Perry. And they are just like heat magnets, with Jack Perry essentially being the Dom Mysterio of the group, if you will, where he's just going to get booed into oblivion wherever he goes, wherever they go. If they don't do that, I don't really understand what the point of all of this was. Because like I said, CM Punk's not in the company anymore. Jack Perry's wrestling in Japan. And the Young Bucks and FTR were not involved in that altercation at all. They aren't seen on the footage. They aren't referenced in anything. Nothing at all. So I really don't know what else there would be to gain from that. The time to do this would have been last year after it all happened, to work at something out and to get everyone on agreement and to run this as an actual angle in the show, because it would have probably been like one of the biggest, most successful storylines in the company's history. They probably would have done all sorts of crazy business. But instead, like I said, it kind of reinforces some of the things that Punk was saying about a lack of leadership, a lack of accountability, and, just kind of like the thought and the suggestion that business isn't what is at the forefront of everyone's mind in that company. So, who knows? I'm personally, I don't see the value in showing the footage. I think it was foolish. I think it's pretty close to what CM Punk said in the interview. I can see the arguments that, he shoved him first and seemed to be the aggressor. We can't hear anything, so we'll never know exactly what was said. Punk says Jack Perry said, do something about it. So, who knows? We'll never really know that. You're kind of just stuck and left to pick a side. Overall, just a really weird week for wrestling, with all of the excitement and everything coming out of WWE in this new era, and just really a focus on how good it is for WWE right now and the wrestling industry as a whole. And then you have AEW doing this, where they're getting compared to, late stages WCW, and people are like saying Tony Schiavone looks like embarrassed to all hell, and he's having to come out and say, no, I was just selling the heel promo. It definitely was not, anything that I didn't talk during the introduction to or after the showing of this footage. I was definitely just selling. So who knows? Maybe AEW will see viewers stick around and they'll continue to draw in consistently. But overall, I see it kind of just as a negative and as a detriment to what they've been doing. And like I said, I'm someone that enjoys watching both. I enjoy watching WWE every week. I enjoy watching AEW every week. I have wrestlers that I like in both companies and that I will follow and support. And that's kind of, where I leave it. I don't need the tribalism, and I don't need the shots back and forth at each other, because there's no point. It's been made clear that wrestling is big enough to have multiple companies, and it has been a net positive for all of these wrestlers who are getting this extra TV time and these extra opportunities that just one company cannot sustain. So I don't understand being so sidetracked and distracted by something like that, to letting it, dictate your entire week of broadcasting, basically your big show. But also, I'm not in that position, so who knows? Maybe if I was Tony Khan and I was running the show and calling the shots, I would take it some type of way. I genuinely don't know. I cannot speak to that. All I can say is they aired it. I was stunned that they aired the actual footage. I do not think it went like they thought it was going to. And now we are left with seeing what they make of it and seeing if it pays off or if this is going to be remembered as a flash in the pan, pop the ratings type of segment, which is something that, late stages Vince McMahon led WWE would do a lot. You would see the legends be announced for, oh, Stone Cold's coming back, or oh, Hulk Hogan's going to be here. Oh, DX is reuniting. Oh, John Cena's coming back next week, and using those legends to pop a rating. It was the same thing. So who knows? And even on the video that I posted, the side by side of Punk and the footage, the arguments and discourse there is pretty split. People are really going back and forth on that, and a lot of disagreements, a lot of arguments. Thankfully, nothing terrible that I've seen. In terms of the way people are talking to each other or anything, which is good. I don't want any of that. I just want, positive discussions. I don't want any, terrible things. But I'm really curious, anyone watching this, please let me know your thoughts specifically about this. If they made a mistake airing this, or what you see this being for the company. A overall negative, an overall positive, a one-time stunt, a weird way to try to build a story. There's so many ways you can land on this. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments on YouTube or at the email address that I will put in the description. Let me know any of your thoughts on this, anything else this week, anything I missed. Like I said, I know it was a pretty crazy week, so I tried to hit as many things as I can, but if there's anything I missed, please let me know. I hope everyone had a great week. I appreciate anyone that is watching, listening, checking this out, anywhere they are. Thank you so much. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you next week.